Hey, everybody. I wanted to talk about some things that are art related, but not necessarily artistic. So, as a teacher for advertising design, which is a trade school class, it's a 2 year program. I get students as well as art students, as well as people in general. And one of the things they ask me is, should you go to college? And I think for everybody, the answer is a little bit different. And you should think about this, obviously, because never before has the cost been so great. Um, and we are living in the best time for information, and information is so much more accessible. So I want to kind of deep dive in as far as, should you go to art school? Should you go to art college? If you want to become a professional artist, what should you go about doing? And by no means is this like an end all be all. As the recording, this was October 2025. So this information will change as time goes on and this video gets a little bit older. But I think that the fundamentals should kind of be the same, as well as the costs will, they're going to increase. I mean, I just don't see college, I don't see college just getting cheaper. It'd be nice, but I don't think that's happening. So let's dive into this. So first off, let's talk about personality traits. What kind of person are you? And I'm drawing from my own experience about what I thought were pros and what were cons, as far as for me, and what my own obstacles were for my journey to art school. So my first question would be to you is that if you're considering art school versus self-learning, the first thing you want to ask, are you self motivated? And this isn't a pro or a con. Well, yes, it is. It's a pro, but and it can be for both college as well as for self study. But are you motivated? Um, do you get stuff done? Are you self driven? And I think that's really an important trait to think about. As far as how much of it do you possess, or is it something that you're developing? Because if you're developing, that's fine. I definitely was not by any means a perfect student, far from it. But recognizing where I needed some improvement, made me a better student and ready to handle taking on 19 and 20 credits a semester and working 25 hours and performing well in college and not wasting my money or dropping out or burning out. So, are you motivated? Do you draw constantly? This is going to be a big thing because every job that I've ever gotten, even as a graphic designer, uh, I got because I had better drawing skills than just the designers that could maybe draw a little bit. They weren't drawing stick figures, but they weren't, they really could not drive home a good illustration. And so, what I would say to you is, do you draw constantly? And if you do, great. If not, that's okay. Are you innately curious? This is vital. Are you curious about how the foot moves or things move or things work? Do you wonder about why does the light change during high noon versus the golden hour, light reflections, all that stuff? Uh, you know, if you read about something and then you think about, well, you know, hey, what are hard and soft edges, and what does this relate to in painting, or typography, fonts, choices, stuff like that. Um, if you're just a curious person, I think that's great. And I would say is that you may be very curious, and maybe somewhat, but you can develop this. Most importantly, are you driven? And this kind of goes back to self motivation, but are you driven? Are you driven to get results? Because at the end of the day, college is result driven. You get grades. You are graded. Your portfolio, your performance, your attendance, all of that factors into your grade. And what's the point of spending money if you're not going to perform? If you're not going to get the job done? If you're only going to half-ass it? Um, you're wasting your money at that point. And so kind of this is a video to help you assess where you are, at least give you some insight. Um, but let's talk about some of the other traits that, I had these. And so I think that, recognizing them helped me and recognize that helped me to see what I need to improve on. And so do you need motivation? And I would say is that if you feel like, I don't want to draw, I'm not inspired, or it's like, I don't really want to draw, but I'm going to draw. Um, where are you on that spectrum? Uh, do you lack confidence in your drawing skills? Do you feel like people who are your age are further along than you are and you're far behind or not where you think you should be? These are things to think about. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the thing is that you really should have a good grasp on drawing before you go to college. I'm just going to say it because college will help you, and you might be lucky and get a good art teacher who's going to help you grow. But you've got it. You really should be competent. You just should not go to art school if you're just a very beginner and you're just evolving from stick figures. And unfortunately, I've seen people go to art school and they have not really developed their skill in drawing, and they're going to a 4-year college, and they're just, yeah, it's frustrating. Now, I am of the belief, first and foremost, that if you lack your drawing skills, you can develop them. Unlike singing, everyone can develop their drawing skills, and that's something I truly believe. So let's look at: are you bored or distracted easily? If you find that you are, how do you say, easily distracted, you can't get things done. Maybe you say that you have ADHD, or you have that, like, how I forgot what's it come something like a, not a mouse mind, but like a goldfish mind. Constantly moving on to the next thing. I don't know if that's a term, but you get my idea. It's like if you get distracted, you can't stay focused, you can't complete projects, you start and don't finish multiple things. That's going to be a problem in college because you've got to be able to finish your projects. You cannot turn in projects that are half done, half baked. Just doesn't work that way. Do you lack a sense of purpose? And I'm going to say that before you go to art school, you cannot go to art school and say, I don't know what I want to do. You really should have an idea, at least a field or a backup field to think about. You should not go to art school and just say, well, I'll just figure it out what I want to do, or it'll help me. No, you really should have an idea of what kind of career goal. Do you want to get into movies, video games? Do you want to do illustration? You should have an idea. Now, it's okay if you pivot while you're there. That's fine, but you really should have a goal, because if you don't have a goal, you may get through college and still not have that goal. And by the time you do get it, you realize that you've missed classes that were available to you in college that you passed up on because you didn't know what your goal was. Okay. That said, let's go ahead and look at the average cost of college. And we are in 2025. I just did some search. These are just general searches. These are not set in stone. And I do believe that they're just going to increase as this video gets older, but at least something to think about. In-state college, the average cost is between $15,000 and $25,000 a year. So it on the cheap side, you're looking at or $60,000. On the more expensive side, for a state school, that's $100,000. $100,000 a year. I mean, not a year. I'm sorry, $100,000 for 4 years total. But wait, there's more. Average living costs and supplies could bump up if we were looking at the, say, $25,000 a year to $37,000 a year. So let's just say you went to a state college, it costs $25,000 a year. And I do know that there's a lot of colleges out there that are a lot more expensive than 25K a year. But let's just say it was 25K. Uh, Average living costs, I'm talking about apartment, electricity, all the living expenses. If you're not living at home, now if you live at home, you could knock, some of this off, but not all of it, because also that includes supplies. Total cost of $37,000 a year for 4 years. That's $148,000. My friends, this is almost, buying a small house, a very small house, but more apartment, but you don't live in it. Okay. This is a huge investment. And then that's kind of what I wanted to have this available for you to at least kind of see. Now, there are colleges that are going to be cheaper than this, and there's going to be colleges that are more expensive than this. And I'm not going to sit there and say which college is good or bad, but you really should do your research and make sure that you're going to get the best bang for your money. You're not overpaying, but you're not underpaying either. And by underpaying for a school that really isn't going to deliver the goods. And then we have to factor in interest rate. So the interest rate is right now for a government student loan is 6.93 annually. Okay. 6.93 annually. So when we factor that in, and I just ran some simple numbers, repayment terms, let's just use a 10-year repayment plan. Rough estimate for the monthly payment is $1,600 a month. So once you graduate, whether you have a job or not, that's $1,600 you have to start paying back. National average starting salary for a graphic designer is $55,000, depending on your location. Some are less. In my area in Hampton Roads, it's less. That's roughly $3,400 per month after taxes. But wait, now you've got to repay your student loan of roughly $1,600. So that's about half of your take home pay. You're making 55K a year. And let's just say this is the student loan of $148,000. You have a 10-year repayment. That means that half of your take home pay, if at $55,000 for 10 years, is going to go to pay for this. Your student loan. That's half your pay for 10 years. Now think about that. That limits you on A, getting a home, B, this may slow down the idea of marriage, kids, and family, getting a car, investing, saving up for retirement. All of these things are things to think about. I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm making this video so that, for parents and students, that you look at this video and you realize, you should not go to college blindly without having a plan on how to repay this back. Okay. I don't want you to have, you know, overwhelming student debt that limits you on your career choices. Can you say hello, starving artist? I mean, yes, this is the thing. Now, not everybody's going to fall into this category because I've completely omitted scholarships, grants, other funding. And if you qualify for those, that's fantastic. If you're doing the military and it's the GI Bill, fantastic. If you've got an athletic scholarship or some other kind of scholarship, fantastic. Anything that you can do to pay for school is awesome. But if you've got to pay out of pocket, your parents just don't have the money to pay for you, and you are on your own trying to go to college. Maybe you're changing tracks, you're in your 40s or 50s, and you think about going back to art school. I have some thoughts on that as well. But if you have the money and it's great. If you don't, then this could be something that you need to think about, because at 55K and you're paying half, after taxes towards repaying this loan, you might end up needing a part-time job at Starbucks. And well, at this national average, Starbucks salary is 15.55 an hour. Now they have health benefits and stuff like that. But really what I'm trying to say is that artists, if you graduate from college and you've got $148,000, starting out on your own, your dream job of pursuing fine art, maybe on your own, you might need that second career. Maybe you need to go to school, college, and get a double major so that you can make the money that you need and then slowly grow and establish yourself as a fine artist. There are many paths to becoming a fine artist. But what I don't want to see is you get crushed by student debt and then you have to give up your dream. Okay. I want you to have a plan so that you can figure it out, plan it out so that you make the most of your investment in college because that's an investment. But let's talk now. I think this is all the bullet points I've got. Let's talk about self study because there's some pros and cons on that, and we're going to talk about those. So, self education and workshops. I said it earlier in the video. You are living at the best time because information is so widely available. I was just literally today talking to my advertising design instructor who taught the class before me, some years ago in the 70s and 80s. And, we both realized, that college is, very expensive now. Um, but if you want to go to the self education route, you can. And yes, you're going to save some money, but let's say you need to develop, and you need something more than books. So let's say that you commit to a week-long intensive workshop at $1,500, and let's say that you commit to taking 4 workshops a year. You're only going to spend $6,000 in that year. Okay. Now, not every workshop and every instructor is good. You're going to need to do your research because you want to get the best bang for your buck and you want to make sure that you're well rounded. Unless you know exactly what you want and all of the instructors that you're taking these workshops from are helping you get to that goal, and that's fine. But this would also allow you to have some freedom to take some workshops that you kind of interested in, but you weren't quite sure. So kind of like, hey, $1,500 at the end of the day isn't that expensive to test drive a workshop or a different avenue. By what I mean by is like if you're going to take an oil painting class and then pastel or something like that. So let's just say you commit to 4 workshops a year at six grand, and a total of 4 years would be roughly $24,000. For 4 years, $24,000. Now we did talk about that's that's not even it's not even a quarter of what we estimated before. Okay, and of course we're not factoring in living expenses or supplies. I mean, that's going to cost some, but not cheap, but not impossible at this point. You would be able to afford this, I believe. At least most people would. Now, let's move on to final thoughts here. Okay. Not every college is the same. There are some good colleges that cost a lot of money and you're going to get a good education. There's also some colleges that are very expensive too, and you're not going to get that as much out of it. Then there's some cheap colleges, and you get what you pay for. Then there's some colleges that are cheaper, and you might get lucky. There's some great instructors working there, and you're going to learn a lot, and you're just getting a bargain. it runs the gamut, guys. So make sure that you do your research. Talk to some graduates. Find, see if you can find out who the graduates are and talk to them. Say, do you feel like you got your money's worth out of this college? And I think you'll get a lot of honesty out of that too. Um, so my final thoughts are: as an artist, as a career, especially if you're going to go work for somebody, companies hire artists based on the quality and level of their portfolio. That's it. They do not care about your GPA, what college you went to, if you were on the dean's list, and if you graduated magna cum laude or cum summa, summa laude. Yeah, or summa cum laude. Gosh, it's late. Uh, they don't care. They want a good portfolio. They want somebody who can deliver the goods. So whether you went to college or not is irrelevant to that. But let's let's now think about some other options here. If without a bachelor's, if you self-study without a bachelor's or a master's, teaching at a primary school or college level is just not possible. Okay, so if you want to teach, so like for me, my job requires a bachelor's. If you want to teach, you have to go to school. That's it. But if you're not in, I mean, and by I mean teaching, I mean teaching at like schools or college. If you teach workshops, hey, if you're a good artist, and you'll get students. Um, so what's best for you? And my final thought is that have a plan for either to go forward. Run the scenarios of both. Now, maybe you just can't afford college. It's just not in the cards. You can still become a professional artist. You just, have to take some workshops and study. And the internet is full of information that I didn't have. And this is what me and the instructor before me, we were talking today. We didn't have access to the internet. There was no internet, at least not to the fact of where it was. We could search on the web. Um, all we had was the library and, having YouTube and this connectivity with artists all over the world. Even to be able to take an online course, none of that was really possible. So you could self-develop, learn on your own, start to develop your professional career. Um, and then if you decide that you want to teach, you know, and maybe you've saved up, maybe you've got some money or you found something you can afford. So you can always go back to school. You can get those loans. Um, you know, they're just handing them out like candy, it seems like, but they're not telling you the repercussions, hence this video. So I'm not trying to scare you one way or the other, but I just wanted to help you make an informed decision on your own, okay? Because everyone is different. Um, but what I don't want to see, and I say this wholeheartedly, as someone who has paid off their student loans, I don't want to see students graduate college and they have this overwhelming debt and they end up having to take a job that is not art related at all. And then they never go and pursue their art career because then they get stuck in that job and dependent on that job and they lose the dream. I don't want you to lose the dream. And I really believe as as a teacher that, this is why I'm making the videos to kind of give you a rough guideline of what to look for. Yes, the prices will change as the years go on. I'll probably have to update this video, but the thing is that this is something not to scare you, but to kind of give you an informed idea of what things cost. Um, there are going to be schools that are cheaper, but you may not be getting as much. You could go and get an associate's degree. Um, but let's be honest, you still can't teach with an associate's degree. So, but you could at least, hey, I can afford an associate's degree. Now go and try and do the fine art or commercial art or fine art. They don't care if you have a degree. Most of them don't. Um, they just want to see good work. And then you could then go back for your junior or senior year and complete it. So you could do it in stages. You don't have to go and do it all at once, and you don't need to do it right out of high school. What you could do, at least this is my path, and I'll just kind of get into this since we're kind of at the closing thoughts. I was not a good high school student, but the VOTEC class, advertising design, gave me uh, a skill set that I could then work and as a professional artist and I got a job as a professional artist before I even graduated. And then I developed that into my own business in the next year, and I started freelancing from then on. And I worked some really crappy jobs. And by crappy jobs, I mean dug ditches in construction. I washed dishes. Um, I sold meat door to door. I did telephone sales in a smoky, dingy room with the white pages. Boy, I'm dating myself. With the white pages, having to call numbers manually on a rotary dial phone. Um, I look back at those jobs and, they sucked, but they gave me grit and they made me understand I did want to do something better. It kind of said, I do want to become a professional artist. I do want to develop my career, and it was develop my drive because I did not have some of the qualities we talked about earlier. I wasn't as driven. I felt like I needed to be motivated. I felt like my skill level wasn't where it needed to be, and so working these crappy jobs gave me some grit. And then I went back and went to school and got my. No, I didn't get my associate's degree, but I did go back to a community college, and then shortly after once I had my portfolio together and some of the core classes, then I went on to VCU and then completed VCU. And I graduated magna cum laude. And my point and the gist of this is that working this crappy jobs gave me the drive to become a good student and to a good artist because I realized those crappy jobs were the only thing waiting for me if I didn't go to college or develop a career. Um, Besides, I suck at math. So, so yeah, I felt it was really my only way out. But everybody's different. Everybody has a different path. And when I've met different artists, it's fascinating to see their journeys. They're not all the same. And some people really bust their butt to get to where they are. And then some people just, you know, they have had some good turns, but they've also worked hard. They've worked hard and they developed their skills. They were just ready for the opportunity. When the opportunity opened itself, they were ready. They were prepared, ready to go when it happened. So it seemed like it was overnight for them, and that's great. So I hope this video was helpful. I really do, because I really want to see you, for those that are promising art students and want to have a career in art. I do want to see you succeed. I want you to be able to have that dream of being able to say, I am a professional artist, whether it's a fine artist, you're a graphic designer, you're an animator, comic book artist, you work in games, whatever that is. But what I don't want is to just, have you fizzle out and have overwhelming student loans and yeah, I don't want that for you. I want you to live the dream and to have a great life and um, have that sense of achievement and to be able to have that pride that you're a working artist. So that's all I've got for you. So good luck. If you have any questions in the comments, I'll try to answer them as best I can. But I don't know everything. But I put this together for my students and for my own knowledge, so that if I do get asked by others people, because I do teach evening class and I have some adult students, and they think about going back to art school too. So I hope this all was helpful for you. And I will see you in the next video back when I'm painting or doing something artistic. All right. Have a great night. Take care.